Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on webcast1live.com studios, coming to you from the always insulated, warm, and polar vortex-free studios of webcast1live.com downtown in Des Moines. If it's 6:30 to 7:30, we are bringing you the perspectives you love from the sides you hate. With me, as always, the only way to stop a bad beard with a gun is a good beard with a gun. My good friend, Doc Pat Petrosh. Doc, what's up?
Hey, not much. I am freshly shorn.
Freshly shorn.
Yes, it's a look that I haven't had in at least 4 years now.
4 years. When I first met you, you were clean shaven to a fault, and then you've been rocking the beard. And I rock the beard because I want to hide the second chin. And I'm told that when I shave, I start getting ID'd again. Have you been ID'd yet? You know, I mean, you don't drink, but have you been ID'd recently?
Strangely enough. After I shaved, I was going somewhere, and I got out, and I had 2 or 3 people stop to looked at me, and they're like, "Well, you don't look old enough to be in here." And I'm like, no, I'm old enough, and I gave him my ID. I haven't officially been carded, but that's it. And I will tell you, my nephew says he didn't even recognize me, and he said, "Geez, you look at least 15 to 20 years younger."
Yep, the hair on the face, it does that. I can remember when I was, and I was like, 23, 24 at the time. So I was pretty young, but I always had a goatee or a beard all throughout college. And when I shaved it all off for whatever reason, because every 5 years I tend to shave my face off. And I was going with a buddy to a bachelor party on one of the riverboats in Davenport. We're going to go gamble. Yes. And obviously now we got to be 18 years old to gamble. And the lady...
I thought it was 21. No?
20. Right. No,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I thought it was 18. Somebody call in and correct us.
That's where they wanted to ID me. I went with my brother Joe and family over to catch the horse races.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, when they had the Budweiser.
Somebody call in and call us stupid, but I was pretty sure it was 18 because I thought that was kind of no, maybe it is 21.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Anyway, whatever one of those reasons, the lady looked at my ID and said, I can't let you in. This, first of all, I was like, well, that's me. This isn't a fake. She's like, no, I know it's not that's not you in the picture. This person is, because I had a beard in the picture. This person is significantly older than you. And yeah, it was pretty funny. But
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, please. I'm just rambling over here.
I will tell you. Here's the reason why I first had a beard. I was down doing my stint in the ERs during my residency, and I was in Florida. And I was manning the ER one Friday night, and this gal, was about 10 o'clock at night. She comes in, she goes, I do my exam, tell her what's wrong, what we ought to do. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, okay. And I said, well, you want me to write the script now, or do you have any questions? She goes, well, yeah, when's your supervisor coming in? And I said, I don't have a supervisor. I'm really a doctor, believe it or not. And she looked at me and she goes, you're way too young to be a doctor. I can't trust your judgment. And I said, I'm 32. And she says, well, when's the next doctor coming on? And I went, he comes in 7 o'clock in the morning. She sat in the ER overnight because I looked too young. So then I grew my goatee, and then after that, everything was good because apparently I looked aged after that.
First of all, it is 21. I'm an idiot. All right. Second of all,
we knew that.
Yeah, I do. I can sympathize with that story because oftentimes I will walk into meeting a client for the first time, especially if it's an out-of-state client for the first time, and I can see they never say what that lady said to you, and with good reason. I mean, if your health is on the line, that's a significant more of a risk than your finances on the line. But I can tell that, the disappointment in waves.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Well, I think I was just your general demeanor. That's how I felt the first time I saw it.
Well, it's because I put off this vibe of complete and total waste of time, disappointment all the time.
Ineptitude? Would you classify it as that?
No, because I would have to have aptitude in the first place.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, I was just clowning with him. Blake's one of the smartest guys I've ever stumbled across. And in fact, he's one of the very few liberals I've ever been able to talk with that once we disagree and we yell and scream, it's all over and done. Most of the liberals come right back and they call you names, and it's not like Lefty doesn't, but he doesn't mean them. He's just trying to be mean.
So he thinks I've been compiling a secret hate journal for the last 4 years of just every time I've been holding the grudge so hard that it's what makes my beard grow in.
Well, at least you have to grow. At least you're holding something.
That's true.
I just thought you were gaining weight.
But that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, all the hate.
He's holding the hate right there.
I got a lot of sympathy hate around my middle.
Now I'm holding my love.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
We can't
back
win.
And forth. Yeah.
We just can't win.
Anyway, well, we have a serious topic for tonight. We'll get to it right after this break. Well, we're going to be talking about immigration and the disaster that's happening down all along our borders. And we'll be back right after this break listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com every Tuesday of 6:30, 7:30 p.m. right here on webcast1live.com. Be back right after the break.
Petrosh and Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in tonight to the live show. Remember that this will be streamed on YouTube shortly after the show, or we might even be on break with Ryan on vacation and Maddie filling in. We certainly don't want Maddie doing extra work for us. She does enough for Minister Ed.
Well,
Fallon.
yeah, but I think she likes working for us much better than she likes working for Ed.
I'm not gonna hold her to that because he's not here to defend himself. He's on his great climate march across the country.
Well, that's the best time to kick a liberals when they're out of town.
When they can't defend themselves. Well, that would be the time you'd kick a liberal because our defense is so strong. You want to talk about immigration?
Yes.
You have an opinion about the disaster.
I'm sure you do, too.
Well, and I'll tell you this. I think that the only thing that the sides can agree on right this minute is that it is a disaster. I mean, you put kids on the border, a lot of children on the border, and rather than this is, okay, politics aside for 5 seconds. I'll make sure that we don't go too political for 5 seconds. You would think that the initial gut reaction of seeing brutalized, not brutalized in all circumstances, but traumatized kids in need on the border would elicit a humanitarian response from all sides. Initially, politics are going to enter into it, but initially, like, oh man, here are these kids on the border, and instead, both sides just dug back into their corners, and we are no closer to getting comprehensive immigration reform now than we were 2 years ago.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. A lot of the people that I talk to, they're all talking about, send the kids home. They shouldn't be housed. They shouldn't be fed. They're illegals and the rest of it. You know what? I'm going to tell you, working with kids all the time, my issue is we have criminals and rapists we support through our prison systems the whole time. It isn't going to kill us to give them 3 hots and a cot for a few days until we can get them back down to where they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be here. The other thing that really irritates me is I've been reading a lot of articles about the trauma these children are facing when we put them in the detention centers, because that's the only place we have for them. What they fail to really point out, the trauma happened when their parents kicked them out of the house, said, run 1,000 miles through drug cartel country, swim a river, and then hope that the Americans are nice enough to keep you. That's really what the trauma is. Putting them in a detention center doesn't traumatize them nearly as much as that. And 2, I'm betting most of our detention centers are much nicer than what they left. It's one of these things where we're applying American values to people who don't have American values.
Boy, I would say that I think that our government is trying to apply American values to the best that it can. I don't think that the people on the border with the signs and screaming about disease and we don't want these children and they're not our problem, I don't think they were exhibiting American values.
Well, the truth is, that's the truth, though.
That was ugly.
We don't want these children here when they're diseased. We don't want these children here. We don't want these people here if they're not going to follow through on the immigration process. That's part of the issue is, I'm the first one to go volunteer to help children in need, right? I dare anybody to challenge me on my credentials there. But the problem is, if you continue to let these children stay, you're only going to create more of a mess, which is what has happened steadily since Obama has taken office. The number of children crossing the border has skyrocketed. The number of illegal immigrants crossing has skyrocketed, and the number of deportations, even though it's gone up, as percentage of the illegals coming across has actually gone down. And that just leads to a lot of child trafficking, human trafficking. This is a humanitarian disaster on our border. We're responsible for creating this mess. And I'm going to say something that's not going to make a lot of my conservative friends happy, but since we're responsible for creating the mess all the way back from 1985, which we've talked about on prior shows, if you want to know the history of why we're in the mess we're in, listen to a couple of our old shows on immigration. We go over very well why we're in this mess. But we've created this mess. We need to take care of these children until we can return them home. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me on that. And
I think go ahead, finish your thought.
Even one of the most conservative talk show hosts that I know, and that includes Hannity and Limbaugh and Michael Savage, has said, listen, we need to take care of these children. That's the Christian thing to do. We're responsible for this mess. So let's get them all healed up. Let's get them all done. But I don't think we need to be spreading them all around the U.S., to these other detention facilities. We need to contain it at the border, get more people at the border, keep it contained, because, you don't know. Somebody might have a very communicable disease. And the other thing is, and people think I'm crazy, but Al-Qaeda is still out there. Terrorists are still out there. They're willing to sacrifice their children to attack us. How do we know they're not sending somebody over that's got the plague? I mean, honest to goodness. I mean, I know, but those are security issues.
I'm trying not to eye roll so hard that the tendons that hold my eyeballs in their sockets snap, because I think that your concern comes from a good place, but it's completely hogwash and without any basis in reality. Here's
all right,
that Al-Qaeda has found a way to ship kids to Costa Rica with the plague to get into. There's no evidence of that. I can't. You know what? I'm not even talking about it.
I'm just saying that's a scenario that could happen. All right. So we'll leave that one on the table.
Fair enough.
Now, not to screw Brett. Jeez, Blake over. Feels like I'm talking to Brett. So we're going to be back right after this break. I'm going to let Lefty have at it when we get back. We want to thank our sponsor, Des Moines Anesthesia. They do a great job for us. They have offices up in Fort Dodge. They do pain management. They do all kinds of really nifty, keen things. If you have degenerative joint disease, particularly in your spine, they have procedures that they can do that can help relieve that pain. So there's their number there. And we'll be back right after this break.
Whether you're 10,
they have a new
25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
See them here, see them there. You got bad credit? We don't care. Metro Foods are everywhere. Metro Foods are everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're talking about immigration today and what's been going on down on the Texas and California border. I think it's Marietta, California, is where we saw those ugly demonstrations responding some of the stuff that Doc said. I mean, I don't think that we necessarily disagree that this is a bipartisan failure when it comes to the immigration system. This is, I mean, the Obama administration gets a lot of heat for having a record deportation, having he's deported the most undocumented folks that come across the border than any other president. He certainly has not been as stalwart an ally for immigration reform as a lot of liberals wanted and as a lot of immigration reform activists wanted him to be throughout his term in the presidency. George W. Bush, who I don't think as a Texas governor certainly had a lot of sensitivity, the way that Rick Perry did, but now he doesn't. Seeing the winds shift, he did. But seeing the wind shift for 2016. But George W. Bush, when he came into office, I think had a sincere desire to do something about immigration and signed 2 bills to that effect. The 2 bills that are, and especially according to Dianne Feinstein, who co-wrote one of them in 02 and I think she was the co-writer of the one in 06 that's getting so much, or 08, I think that's getting so much play now, is this law on the books that folks, or that children coming in from countries that are not Mexico or Canada have this rigorous detention sort of screening and sending them back to their countries that is contributing to a lot of this stuff. And what we have been seeing, according to a lot of the activists that are giving interviews and are talking and writing about this stuff now, is this is not a new thing. I mean, you're right that there are people coming across the border still, although I would argue that the net numbers of undocumented folks coming across the border against the law was down for a lot of the first few years of the Obama presidency, but we're seeing an upswing in it again because of increased violence and increased dangerous situations in Central American and South American countries. That's just, as the violence ebbs and flows, we're going to see people come across the border. But a point that was made that I really tend to agree with is, look at Lebanon. Look at Russia. Look at Iraq. Look at Iran. Look at Turkey. Look at all these places around the world that are having intense, enormous humanitarian refugee crises. People fleeing violence, people fleeing war, fleeing all sorts of different conflicts, going to places where they're trying to that it's safe. And you know that not every single one of those people is an unaccompanied minor, and they're also not families traveling together. So these children are being sent by their parents through, like you said, drug cartel controlled, violent, desolate conditions. How desperate of a parent are you to even to put your child in that kind of situation? How bad is it at home already to risk the, as your boy Ronnie Reagan would put it, the shining city on the hill? That's what they're looking for. And I got to tell you, Republicans, aside from the bipartisan, non-controversial bill that was passed in 2008 that set the stage for this crisis today, that's being enforced, but Republicans take a lot of that. I mean, if we're going to talk about what Obama has or hasn't done, I got to say to you, if we're so concerned about how our messaging is perceived around the world and around the country, then Steve King up in Northwest Iowa, my home district, my home stomping grounds, screaming at the top of his lungs that this president and this country are about amnesty and about a free ride for illegals. If that message is getting out and being believed, then why wouldn't people show up? Oh my God, Steve King is saying that we just we get to come in and we're immediately citizens. It's great up there. Well, no, because that's not what happens. People come into this country and are slapped in a detention center when a lot of these kids, maybe they don't meet the technical legal definition, but the refugees, and we got to take care of them. And the ugly demonstrations of those folks in Marietta, California, I think, demonstrate where the Republican Party, maybe not the Republican Party, but certainly the hard right base of the Republican Party, is setting the Republicans up for another political disaster with respect to their knee-jerk response to this crisis.
Well, first of all, as far as the protests in California, who says that these people are Republicans? I mean, you don't see the Republican Party organizing this. You're just making an assumption and a basic smear. Number two, the people that are the most upset about the way we handle our immigration policy are those that followed the system and got here legally. There isn't a single person that I know, and I know a bunch, that followed through the system, came in legally, that is saying, yeah, let's let them in. What they say is, this is totally unfair. This is creating a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. You have all kinds of drug trafficking, all kinds of human trafficking. You have kids being sold into slavery, women being sold into slavery, and men being sold into slavery because of the way we don't enforce our laws. And they say, tell me directly, I had to follow the system. I'm a productive citizen. These people are showing up diseased, hungry, just a burden. And the bottom line is how do you know these were Republicans? How do you know they're not people down there going, we are sick and tired, not necessarily these people coming in, but because of the travesties that they bring with them. Because they're not just bringing teenagers. I mean, that's what we're focusing on. There's 57,000 teenagers across the border this year, right? And, in 2008, there was 8,600 children crossing the border. So there's an enormous increase. Now, to Lefty's point about, when you have Steve King, a congressman, saying stuff like nobody's enforcing the law and the rest of it, yes, that gets out and around. How can Steve King be more responsible in his verbiage? That's what's happening. And the problem really boils down to, how long are you going to let this go on? Because we've talked before, this isn't just a brown problem. Currently, it's a brown problem in Texas. But the bottom line is, there's 500,000 women missing out of Ukraine, and they find a lot of them over here in North America, Canada, or the U.S. If you have porous borders and you don't follow the laws and you don't reinforce it, it just encourages more of this. It's like drugs, right? America is the world's biggest consumer of illegal drugs.
And I think you and I are going to agree on this 100%. If you watch Bill Maher's show on Fridays, he showed two pictures. He showed like a picture of a kid, presumably in some terrible situation, next to a picture of a guy using drugs here in the States, and that's the problem. That's the source of the problem. If our consumption of drugs wasn't the way that it was, I kind of think it's a 1-to-1 correlation. I think you'd agree with it. I think that our demand for drugs drives a lot of this. It drives the violence. I'll agree. It drives the violence. I'm not quite sure illegal immigration. I hear no, because not illegal immigration necessarily as a whole thing, but the violence pushes folks up in it. Because I don't think this is a case of illegal immigration. Like I said, I think these are people fleeing a war zone, and this is the biggest shame on our government that I have for this whole thing. We had the Senate pass a bill, and the House wouldn't take it up. We had the president look for and he said it himself. You can't govern crisis to crisis. He said it numerous times. I hate this kind of legislation. The emergency $3 billion to kind of relieve some of the pressure that was not taken up because we can't afford it. We're the richest country in the world. The same people that have no problem sending our troops to die overseas and to spend all kinds of money arming people like the rebels in Syria that turned out to be the folks that are taking over Iraq, no problem spending billions and billions of dollars, trillions of dollars doing that, but $3 billion to relieve the stress of our immigration system and to make sure that these kids are well taken care of until whatever happens to them happens to them. I think it's a shame. I think it's a tragedy. Well,
and as a fiscal conservative, I am going to agree with Lefty on that one. The bottom line is we have, as a Christian nation, And this is what Republicans say all the time. As a Christian nation, we need to take care of these people that wind up on our borders. Doesn't mean they have to stay here. It doesn't mean that, we get to be taken advantage of, but it does mean that we're responsible for this mess through several different means, and we need to take care of the
we need a Statue of Liberty on the Mexican border is what we need.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll be back right after this break. Thanks for tuning in. You're catching us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for the first half hour. I think that we are probably going to be dedicating this entire hour to immigration and what's been going on the last few days because it is such a big issue. We've talked in previous shows about how we got here, why we're here, and Doc, the how and the why are pretty easy to answer because we have always been. Well, not always, and I'll get to that in a second, but we have always imagined ourselves to be an arms wide open country. Like I referenced the Statue of Liberty for the last break. Bring us your poor, you're tired, bring us your poor, you're weary, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. We have that principle kind of ingrained in our bones, and yet various times, and in fact, probably more times than not throughout our country's history, we have not been as welcome to people that come here that want to make a life here. The response that I get to that sentiment always is, we'll welcome you as long as you obey the law getting in. Here's my problem, not with the law. I can't ever advocate not following the law.
Well, that's very good, counselor.
That would be a problem for my reputation. But here's my issue with that sentiment is, especially with kids, especially with children, most of these kids had no choice in the matter. And in fact, we don't, unless it's criminal intent, we don't recognize that children have much of a choice in anything until they reach 18, right? So the kids that are coming over here because their parents sent them over here, or they're coming with their parents, or they don't know, you're a 5-year-old, you don't know what your immigration status is. And then being told sort of after the fact that, hey, you know what, you got to leave. You got to go because of a choice your parents made. We need to do something about that, right? Well,
yeah, absolutely. But here's one of the things. There's 3 different points about what Lefty just said. Number one, these kids, the kids under 12 that are showing up, and I haven't been able to find a firm number on that. But the bottom line is these kids that are showing up that are 5 years old, they didn't make it there on their own, right? I can see teenagers, 15, 16 years of age, being able to make it on their own. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, my very strong suspicion is that these parents pay some mule, some drug cartel, something, thousands of dollars to transport them up here.
Well, what you've been hearing a lot from some of the parents that came up with them or been interviewed is that they're press ganged into sending their kids out.
Yeah. And
we're burning the town down. If you want to send your kids, we'll take money to take your kids away, and we won't burn the town down.
And I will tell you that's awful. That's why we have a political refugee system.
Yep.
And again, here's another thing that we need to have some reform on. Part of the problem is, and you're probably too young to remember this, but we had a flood of Vietnamese refugees back in the 70s and early 80s. Just a flood of them.
Well, remember the Romanians that came over in the 80s?
Yeah. Romanians. The problem is most of the people that wanted to come couldn't come. They couldn't. We need to be we need to welcome the huddled masses with open arms. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have chaos. They have to go through the process, but the process is flawed in several different ways.
Agreed.
And the second thing is when you're sitting there telling the world, just like Lefty said in the last subject, when you're telling the world, listen, we're not enforcing our laws. We don't have any intention on bringing any kind of immigration reform, all the rest of this. Now you got problems, because look at the guest worker program. If we had a good guest worker program, most of these, I'm not going to say most, but there's going to be a lot of illegals that won't be illegal anymore. They'll come up to do the job and go back, and I got to remind me to tell you about the guy I have work on my house sometimes, because that's a pretty interesting story for the Republicans.
Well, and I'll give you two. Why don't you go into that story, because I got some thoughts about
there's a couple
of political fallout here in the next segment.
Well, there's a couple of issues that I want to bring up. One, they're shipping these people across the country without health checks. All right, that doesn't even make any sense. Now scabies, don't get me wrong, scabies is awful. You don't want it, but it's not a big deal. We can treat it, right? And you always see pictures of that one guy with scabies everywhere. Scabies happened even before they got here. The problem is all the other diseases, all the other communicable diseases they may be carrying without a health check. That's why we need to spend, I never advocate spending more money, but in this case, it's going to benefit Americans in the long run. Make sure you keep it contained in the border states, right? Get more detention facilities. So they're shipping them all over, and they're not being checked. Number two, and this is from my brother Joe, and you can say what you want about him, but he's a straight shooter. There are a lot of people of color, blacks, other Latinos, Asians, who are saying, listen, these kids are getting preferential treatment over our kids. If that's true or not, I don't know, but seems to be a very large sentiment. The third thing that I want to bring up about this whole thing is something that rats, wouldn't you know? I lost it. Oh, here we go. Now, I don't have my glasses, so I got to back way up from the screen. Pope Francis says many people forced to immigrate suffer and often die tragically. Many of their rights are violated. They are obliged to separate from their families and unfortunately continue to be a subject of racist and xenophobic attitudes. Now, you can call America racist or whatever you want to do, but we're generally a pretty generous country. I agree that all those things happen. But the problem is when you're forced to immigrate, or when you go, I'm not going to follow somebody else's law, that's what happens. Now, I will tell you, with this latest Ukrainian crisis, we talked about that a lot. I have personally told my friends, I will pay for your flight wherever it is. You want to go to Istanbul, you want to go to Israel, you want to go to Cyprus, wherever it is, I'll pay for it to get out of there. Here's the response I got from people in Ukraine. I'm not leaving my family. I can't leave my children, right? We're a family unit, and we're going to face it as we see fit. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a little bit different in Ukraine than it is in South and Central America. I mean, that's always been a mess. But the bottom line is there's a world of difference in the cultural aspects of this. And don't get me wrong. There's hundreds of thousands of refugees in Ukraine at this point. Hundreds of thousands. But they're following through on the process. They're immigrating temporarily to the border countries. And they agree that we're going to be here. We're going to try to be productive. And as soon as we're able, we're going to go back home. But you don't have any such guarantees. Now, to tell you a story about this worker, and I'm not going to say his name or anything else like that, but I got to talking to him one day. We were working late on the house. And I just asked him, I said, are you here legally? He goes, yeah, I have my green card. Really? I said, how'd you get your green card? And he goes, well, I was here illegally when I was a young man. I think he said he was 16. And he said, my brother and I, we came up, things were really bad at home, and we were desperate. So we came up there and we found the work that we could do. And I said, so how'd you get your green card if you're here illegally? And he says, well, Reagan gave us amnesty. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. And at the time they told us we could vote. And I said, they did. Yeah. And he even shows me his voting registration. He says, they told me I could vote. They got me registered. And I said, well, were these people Republicans or Democrats? He says, I don't know. I was just down at the amnesty office, or that's what he called it. And I was getting registered. So then I asked him, I said, well, who'd you vote for? after that, after you got amnesty? And he said, I voted Republican. They're the ones that gave me amnesty and let me in. So I said, so do you have friends that vote Democratic? Yes, now. Why? Because we all think that this system needs to be redone, and I want somebody that's going to reform the system. The system's broken. And I thought to myself, that's exactly what's wrong with the Republican Party. You guys don't take on the issues you need to take on and introduce any reform. You sit back and you react to whatever it is.
It's not only is that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, we're on a break.
Okay.
If you got 15 seconds.
I don't.
All right. Well, then we'll be back right after this break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you visit Dwayne Anesthesia PC and their website. They have a new number, and I forgot to there it is. It's 574-6442. It's Dwayne Anesthesia PC. They'll get you in if you have any pain management. We'll be back right after this break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty. We're just speeding through this hour because this topic is so relevant and important. Yeah. And right before the break, you were talking about some of the issues that the Republicans have, and the comment that I wanted to make on the shifting political demographic with respect to this issue is you have a lot of Republicans out there that are saying this isn't even a problem. The system isn't broken. It doesn't need reform. All we need to do is protect the border. Then you have the Republicans that are a little bit more realistic than that say, no, we need to just protect the border first. We can reform it later. To me, that seems to be and we're going to talk about some of the two political calculations that have been made by the Republicans and the Democrats, especially with everybody kind of piling on Obama, calling this Obama's Katrina, and I'll address that here in a second. The Republicans have made a decision here recently that immigration is a non-starter for them because of the midterm and because of 2016. And they're doing that because their base is so whipped up about this stuff from guys like our buddy Steve King, from guys like Raul Labrador in Idaho, from guys around the country that have made their political careers on this issue. Mainstream Republicans, folks in the rank and file, good guys like Tom Latham. Sure, he toed the party line with votes, but you never saw him saying the kind of stuff that Steve King did, because that's his constituency's number one. You want to chum the waters. That's how you do it. So they made a choice. They've made a political choice, and they got to stick with it. No immigration reform. That's it. The Democrats, on the other hand, and the president especially, have gotten to well, actually, I'll just put the question to you. You've heard a lot about this. Rick Perry wanting him to come down to the border, wanting to have him, survey the damage, so to speak. Is this Obama's Katrina?
Well, I don't think it's Obama's Katrina. He's the truth is he's kind of like Reagan in that, remember they call him Teflon Ron way back in the day. Well, this president, nothing really sticks to him. Nobody really likes him. But, if he ran for a third term, I'm confident he'd get reelected, particularly with the rumors that Mitt Romney is going to run again. Oh, my goodness. A couple of things, the right wing says nothing. Nobody's coming in. Lock the borders down. We're going to become a military state kind of stuff.
Yep.
And the liberals go, let everybody in, no controls. We'll just deal with the rampage later. neither approach is going to work. Neither approach has ever worked. All right. So there has to be something in the middle, and there's things that are very reasonable. You know, when I was on the campaign trail, I floated my idea. Believe it or not, Newt Gingrich has a pretty good immigration reform plan, right? I would agree with it. Most people I talked to would agree with my plan or Newt's plan. But Lefty's right that the Republican Party has said, this is our line of saying about it, where we can't risk alienating our base. I go back to the point I've made over and over and over. It's a different time. You can't keep running a Reagan presidency blueprint. You can't do that. You have to sit there and realize that you're going to have to come a little bit to the middle now. And
I don't think Reagan would get out of a Republican primary.
Oh, I don't think he would either. Well, in fact, he didn't. There's a couple of times he didn't get out of the primary.
Well, you know what I mean. Today, I think if he ran today, I don't think he'd make it out.
The bottom line is this
Sarah Palin calling him a traitor.
Yeah, well, that may be. Here's what the issue is. The Republicans blew it in 2012. They missed everything. I was on this show. I was talking to Lefty, talking about these people don't understand. Not 2000. Yeah, it was 2012, the presidential election. And I said, this is not going to work. President Obama is going to get reelected. He's going to get reelected. I said that several times. Said it to Lefty. And everybody else said, oh, no, it's going to be a landslide. You know, Roger Ailes, everybody. There's a different demographic. You're going to have to stop and start talking to people, not just pollsters. Don't get me wrong. I like Frank Lutz. I like the stuff he does. Doesn't have his hand on the pulse of America. And the Republicans are wasting a tremendous opportunity to go, you know what? We're going to take a page out of the Democrat playbook. We're going to take your issue, make it ours, and beat you with it. If they come up there and said, here's our reform plan, run it through Congress, right? And without leafing the tree, and then put it over to the Democrats, say, there you go. There is a reasonable reform plan voted down. And then you have yourself an issue. We tried to do something, you know, and the bottom line is don't get me wrong, the base is important. But if you sit there and say, listen, we didn't make them citizens, we didn't give them amnesty, but we did reform it, that's going to go a long way to making your base happy.
Well, and you know, I wonder, and respond to this, because this is kind of the thought that I have. The Republican, we talk all the time about the Republican base, and I was watching Meet the Press on Sunday, and Rick Santorum talked about how divided the Republican Party was. A national Republican figure admitting how divided the Republican Party was. Of course, he's not. I don't think he might not be running for anything in 2016. I don't think he probably is, but it was that was sort of interesting to see. But we talk about the base and what it does or doesn't like and what it does or doesn't do. But I wonder if some of this, and liberals don't freak out. You know, the 6 of you that listen to this show don't freak out at me because
more than 6.
Okay, but I guess my parents have tuned in a couple of times. So that'd be 8. But I wonder if some of this is a sincerely held belief that the only way to get less government is to force less government. The libertarians out there, and this isn't even classic libertarian political philosophy. This is nearly, in some instances, a sort of soft-boiled anarchism that's running through the Republican Party right now, where they are happy. They're happy that legislation isn't getting passed. They're happy that their taxpayers' dollars, their money, is going to pay the salaries of people who aren't working a lot. They're happy that this is the least productive Congress, I mean, by terms of legislation passed in history. They don't just say, what did John McCain say back in 2008 that kind of has continued up until now? And Mac, don't fire me. He said it's not no, it's hell no. Right? Yeah. That's been the attitude, because there's a sincerely held belief that more laws, more legislation is bad for the country. Now, I know that a part of your core Republican belief system thinks that to be true, but we're not talking necessarily about new out of the blue laws to restrict more things or to alleviate more things. We're talking about reformations of past legislation that have become unworkable in the new age, and I think that's what's important.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. We're going to be back right after this break. We have some breaking news we're going to get to right after this in our final segment. You're watching Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. We'll be back right after the break.
Bertroche and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. We are proud to work with military personnel and their families. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Bertroche, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere. Our licensed mental health therapists provide individual counseling to children, adolescents, and adults, including couples and marital counseling. Visit our website at bertrocheandassociates.com for more information or call 515-334-9484. Our offices are located at 5525 Meredith Drive in Des Moines, just east of Skate North off Merle Hay Road. Isn't it time to talk to someone? Take care of yourself and your family. Contact Bertroche and Associates.
Hey, thanks for sticking around for this last few minutes of the show. So, Doc, you got breaking news. What's up?
I do got breaking news. Now, one of the things, well, first of all, everybody knows Governor Branstad says we feel bad for the citizens of Texas. We also feel bad for the plight of the illegal immigrants, but we don't want them here. Basically, he doesn't want to overwhelm our frankly fragile healthcare system up here. I mean, I'm sure that's the driving force. So there have been several people that have been critical of him, mainly from, nonprofits that work with children, and there are several. And the problem is apparently there's been a call go out that says, we can, if you're willing to take these kids, this is how much money you get. And there's a group here in town that turned it down in Clarinda Academy, which is where a lot of these where weird children go, have just turned it down. So I thought that was pretty, already people are going like, we've looked at it and there's not a way we can take these kids, especially at the rate they're going to get reimbursed. And, the thing is, if you're providing, health and education, everything else for people that aren't citizens, that takes away from the people that are citizens, because there's a finite resource. I agree with you. We're a wealthy country, but, even MC Hammer went belly up. I mean, that happens. There's a finite amount of money out there, and you have to choose what you spend it on. And I think that's just what's going on.
Unless it's to fund wars and send troops overseas.
Well,
then it seems to be infinite. Then there doesn't seem to be any kind of.
It's not infinite. Well, and that's a conversation for another show.
Sure.
Because you keep saying, oh, well, we spend all this money. Well, when you look at the amount, it's a topic for another show. So
fair enough.
We're going to leave it there. The other thing is Tom Shaw, a super duper friend of the show, says that he's got some evidence that illegals arrive in buses and shop at Walmart with EBT cards. Well, I'm going to, and I respect Tom, but I'm going to tell him that's old news. That really is old news, because I've said it on this show 100 times. I work at these facilities. They have illegal immigrant children on welfare, on Medicaid, getting the state dollar, getting federal funding. That's been going on for at least a decade.
Here's my question to you about that. Well, actually, I'm going to cross-examine that statement.
Fair enough.
Okay. Can you tell an undocumented or illegal, as you put it, immigrant child just by looking at that child?
Well, that is such a set-up question and completely.
I'm cross-examining you.
Yes. Well, it's completely inappropriate for our discussion.
Can you tell just by looking or not? No.
Not well. Yeah.
Just by looking.
You can tell if somebody is Americanized or not. I will tell you that. And the bottom line is, you know, these kids come in, they need much more services. That means the ones that I've encountered, they need much more services than the citizens that are
I'm going to move to strike as unresponsive. But anyway,
it's a completely unfair and BS question.
It's not a BS question because
there's not. Well, can you tell the difference between?
You just said that you see illegal immigrant kids all the time with federal benefits. Now, the only way they'd be able to be eligible for any kind of federal aid, because we have laws in place that say you can't, is if they had some kind of Social Security number. Now, if that Social Security number has been bought or is fake or whatever, and they're using and they bought fake documents to commit fraud, which is a problem. How would you know that?
Well, one, they tell me.
They tell you.
The number one, they come in there, they tell me. Two, their workers tell me. Number three, there is a law that says these people can save for 2 years. And at that point, that's when they get the aid. I don't know how they do it. I just know that that's what happens. I know that's what's going on. Now, don't get me wrong. Here's another thing. When I deal with immigrant children from the Balkans or from Ukraine or Russia or heck, even Germany, the kids show up. They speak English pretty well. And about the age of 12, that's when the accent sticks. And that's fairly consistent. That's just developmental. And the problem is you can tell the ones that came over young versus the ones that came over old. And the other thing is if, and don't get me wrong, I know a kid who's an American citizen and only spent maybe 3 weeks in America and then went back to Mexico. Can't speak a lick of English. So you're right. You can't tell an illegal alien by looking, but when they sit there and they tell you, yeah, I showed up illegally, my parents came here, and then ICE came and scooped them up and sent them home, which is another show we've done.
Yep.
Right? And they say, yeah, I'm here illegally. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm 18. That's why we get back to being a reformist.
My parents have been taken back to the home country. They haven't found me yet, but I mean, what am I supposed to do? I don't have any parents. Yeah, I know. It drives me crazy.
And I'm still going to get back to that as a completely unfair question. Completely unfair.
You can call it unfair. I think it's completely fair because the only way that a lot of this stuff can be known for sure is through eyewitness evidence of seeing somebody sneak across the border, go into Walmart with an EBT card. Otherwise, what you're saying is that person there, I think, is illegal and using government services illegally, and unless you talk to them, unless you run their fake Social Security number, how would you ever know?
Because they show up on an ICE bus.
What I'm talking about.
Well, that's how you know. They showed up on an immigration and an ICE bus.
Oh, so immigration is complicit in defrauding the federal government.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Is that your accusation?
Absolutely, because this entire mess currently, right, rests strictly on Obama. There's a lot of things that led up to this, but when you come out there and say, yeah, as President of the United States, we're not going to enforce our laws. We're going to give discretion to local ICE officials, whether to hold people or not. You know, the numbers are very staggering. 8,600 in 2008, 57,000 in 2014.
This argument,
there's a reason.
This canard
and
that the laws are not being enforced is foolish. And people sound foolish when they say it. The idea that the immigration laws are not being enforced is not true. It's completely not true. The laws are being followed. Right. George Bush's 2008 law is being followed right now, and that's why these kids are here. So, I mean, what part of the law do you like? Do you like the part that says we got to take care of them? Or do you like the part that we
both agree that there needs to be reform?
Yes.
But this problem here stems directly from a lack of enforcement and not sending these people home immediately. Now, there's all kinds of other reasons that led up to this thing, but you can put this firmly at the feet of Obama just by the numbers. 57,000 teenagers. Doesn't include everybody else. I mean, they're talking 800,000 illegal immigrants just from South America, from states south of America. That's what I meant. So, I mean, and the other thing is, you have to have immigration reform. The FBI just got done busting this giant prostitution ring of Eastern European girls out in New York. They sent home 1,500 people, right? They caught 300 guys doing this. Well, the bottom line is you need more of that. You need more of these people needing to show up, doing what they're supposed to do. You know, and it's a humanitarian crisis. These people are becoming slaves in our country. Well, you and I can both agree to that.
Yeah, a lot
they're
of
becoming slaves.
You hear those kinds of horror stories, but it's so hilarious to me that the one guy that says we need to do something, we need to fix it, we need to get together and figure something out. The president, who's getting no help from the Republicans in Congress. We both agreed to that earlier in the show. He's the guy that all the Republicans are saying he's not doing his job. How can he do any kind of job without any sort of legislative mandate from Congress? He's already enforced the law.
He's got an attorney general who won't enforce any law.
He's already enforced the law. I mean, he's deported the most people.
Obama doesn't enforce the laws.
Deported the most people.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Deport him. So he's doing. That's what he's doing. So,
but
how can he say, you know what? He's deported. Oh, what is enough?
I just got done
what
saying.
Is enough?
I just got done saying.
Let's deport everybody. Let's just everybody. How about you know what? I'm going back to Germany. I'm going back to Germany. I'm going back to Germany where my ancestors came from because this country needs more deportation. Hey, folks, thank you so much for tuning in.
There you go. That's silly because he's not looking at the clock. I am. We have another 2 minutes of this. The bottom line is the illegal immigrant numbers have skyrocketed, and therefore the number of deportations has gone up.
Only guy that
as a percentage, the deportations have gone down.
Republicans can't give Obama a win because they can't see a president who's doing his job when they're doing such a crappy job of doing their own of passing legislation. So they're going to block everything he tries
Obama
to
won't
do.
Enforce the laws as they are.
I see. So
that's the point.
So we won't pass a new law. We're not going to pass a law to set it up that he doesn't enforce it, and then get our big grand golden chalice of impeachment. That's ridiculous. If they wanted to string this president along in such a way as to make him not enforce stuff because he's not going to enforce anything anyway, why don't they send him raft after raft of legislation? Why don't they just say, you know what, we're going to bury you in paperwork if you're not going to enforce it anyway? Why?
You know
because he is enforcing it.
He's not enforcing it.
He is enforcing it.
We just talked about how the Republican leadership, we talk about this all the time. So when you're talking about the Republicans doing a good job, they're not. All right, they're not.
Obama sucks because the Republicans suck.
That Obama's doing his job.
This is the netherworld.
Just because they're sitting there and the Republicans are doing a bad job and Obama's doing a worse job doesn't mean that Obama is still not doing a bad job.
I feel like I'm in the twilight zone with you sometimes.
You know what? Because you don't use any logic or sense.
I feel like listening to you.
And then you set me up. I'm hurt. I'm going to cry.
Listening to you makes me feel like I'm in the outer limits.
The bottom line, you may think he's enforcing law. He's not enforcing law.
Right now, I feel like John Lithgow on the plane watching the gremlin rip the wings off.
Well, you know what he's done is but the gremlin was out there he was right. Just like I am. I'm John Lithgow. I'm right. I see the gremlin. Nobody else does. No, but in all honesty, simply because the Republican Congress is doing a bad job doesn't mean Obama is not enforcing the laws. Now, the strategy Lefty laid out is a great strategy. I wish the Republicans would strap on a pair and do it just like that. That would be fantastic.
Well,
we got to go.
If we're ending the show with I'm right, then I agree to end the show.
All right. Well, so there's a lot of things we agreed about today, and then the problem is we hold it back, and we only get about 40 minutes being able to hold it back.
Yep.
We'll be back next week. If anybody has a topic, hit us with Facebook. We'll be glad to discuss it.
YouTube, Facebook, Twitter.
We didn't do that a single time this time.
All the social stuff. DocandLefty.com.
Yep.
Thank you to Maddie for doing the producer stuff.
She's wonderful.
Yes, she is wonderful. And
she only fell asleep once.
We'll see everybody next week, right?
All right. Yep. See you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.